Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're gonna make some heavy pounding industrial techno from scratch just by using Ableton stock plugin, and it sounds like this. And then you have a break. Then no drums, still with the full lead on. Then you can make some cuts, bring back the hop and hats. Alright, so now we are in Ableton. We're gonna first change the BPM to 155. And like I say, I want this heavy pounding, hammering kind of industrial technos. And to create this very hammering kick, the best way and the simplest way I found is to basically layer. So we will have one kick, which is a traditional 909 key that we were gonna process. And then we will layer with a sample and to create that hammer effect. So the key we're gonna use is the classic 909. You can grab the Ableton core kit. I choose this one because everyone can have it, but you can try it with any kind of very punchy analog kick. It has to, don't be too processed, obviously, if you want to process it, or you can use one already processed. I'm gonna do a 4-to-4 kick pattern. Just gonna grab this velocity up. Here you can experiment with the pitch, with the tune knob, and the GK with the length of the kick. I'm gonna leave it for now and we're gonna start processing because that's where all is gonna happen. Unfortunately, I don't have magic recipe for you. It's all about experimenting with compression, EQ, distortion, saturation. It's always about trying different combinations until you get something you like. So we're gonna start with multiband compression, and I'm actually gonna use the preset called Flatline. Then I'm gonna add a bit of saturator, and you have different modes. I'm gonna go with soft sine and maybe reducing the drive a little. And then finally, I'm gonna add a bit of drum bass. So drum bass is gonna add a bit of chorus by default. And you can go in hard because it's gonna add harmonics in the low. One thing I like to do usually is to activate the compressor. And then I'm gonna bring up the trim and the transient up. So now you get a nice punchy 909 kick. Now the idea is to have this hammering effect, and I found the best way and easiest way to do that is to use cinematic impacts. The most famous audio company that does this kind of SFX is Boom Library, but they are quite expensive. But you have this website called 99 Sounds where they have cinematic impact as well. So you see it's called more cinematic impact, and you have all kind of impact. So the idea is to layer that. Obviously we're gonna process it as well a little bit. We're gonna create a new MIDI track, and I'm gonna drop this one. I'm gonna drop it to a drum rack, and same the MIDI copy. You hold control and you copy. Sometimes it will work just by layering the sound like this, kind of adjusting the volume to your taste. But here are two tricks I can give you to kind of make you own and modify it a little bit. The first one, so you have a filter on your sampler, and we're gonna basically low pass filter the sample, and the idea is to low pass it and then apply a filter envelope to kind of quickly grab the transient. So we're gonna low pass this. Then you can experiment the type of filter. You can add a bit of drive. There really depends what you want. 12 dB one will let pass more harmonics, and then we need to go to control, and you can see when you click to envelope here, you have the filter envelope where you can control the amount. Now we're gonna see how the envelope can affect the sound. You can obviously play with the decay as well. The longer the decay, the longer it's gonna let pass higher frequency. Alright, I like something like this, not too much. We have this click at the beginning, that's all what I wanted. Now you can hear with the kick. You can see there is some kind of problem because we lose a bit of low end. First thing you can do is basically pitch it according to what needs to be done. Here it's pretty solid. We have a nice and tight low end. Now the second trick to kind of modify as well this hammering effect is to basically apply a pitch envelope. So here again I'll give you some value, but you can experiment. And we're gonna go with 12 dB of modulation. And one thing about that, you can play with the GK. So then here again, up to you, experiment until you find something you like. You might need to bring back your original kick to kind of adjust everything. Alright, I kind of like this. Now obviously we can process it as well. Then I'm gonna use overdrive, you can use amp. And here again, you're tweaking until you find something interesting. So next I'm gonna add kick punch. This is a rack I made with some reverb and distortion to kind of help you kick cut through the mix. Here I'm gonna use it to enhance the mid-high. I will put it in the description if you wanna find out more. Okay, maybe we're gonna add a limiter to kind of control of that. Okay, I'm just gonna rename these two color, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna group them. So maybe we need to adjust the volume a little bit. Alright, so now we're gonna process this even more. So again, experimenting, I'm gonna maybe use overdrive. Then it depends how nasty you want your kick. Okay, now we can try to add some amp. So I'm just gonna put in duo mode and then I'll put the bass mode. Okay, another way to process kick is as well use an EQ. Here I'm gonna use it just more to like kind of rebalance. And then finally we're gonna add drum boost, which is gonna compact everything with the compressor, with the limiter as well. It's gonna tame everything. Again, here you can experiment, depend how you want your kick. And I'm gonna reduce the output to -6. I could do it here, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with this kick now. Alright, final thing you can add, this is like a little extra. I've made this rack with the beat repeat rack, so that's gonna be great for our arrangement where you can just like... So yeah, that can be pretty handy. Now here from our kick drum, we can generate some percussion loop. And I created basically a rack 1 or 2 months ago called this Industrial Techno kick rack, which is basically you have your dry signal and then you have different chains inside the rack where we process, add reverb, add percussion, and you can get results like this. And we're gonna get inspired of this. Obviously I'm not gonna use the rack, so this way you can understand better how it's working. Here I could create a return to send my kick to get this effect. So here I'm just gonna create a new draw track and I'm gonna select as input basically my kick, and I'm gonna put in, and I'm not gonna put post mister, I'm gonna put post effects. So our first layer will be the kind of a top layer percussive, having this very distorted delayed percussion, which is gonna add groove and bit of bite as well. So we need first a delay. So here obviously we want our draw rate 100%. We just want the percussive things, and then we can change the time as well. I'm gonna remove the sync and having maybe 1-3 and a bit more feedback. Then adjust the frequency. Here depends if you want something more clicky or more. Remove the ping pong as well. Very important. So like this you get this. Okay, now it's great, but we want to add a bit more bite. First things, it's very stereo, and I want to put it in mono. Okay, and we're gonna add byte with drive. So this is basically the same chain I'm recreating that I've done in my rack, and I'm gonna put in boost. Just gonna put the volume at 6. Pretty nasty. So then again, if it's too distorted for you, adjust this parameter. Now we're gonna add a bit of reverb, so I'm gonna use Ableton basic reverb. So this is my default preset. It's probably different than new Ableton one. Usually this is a not too long reverb, which sounds great, and I'm just gonna adjust a little bit the GK. Alright, pretty nasty, but again, we can get even crazier and add a bit more overdrive. The great thing with overdrive is sometimes you can use it just as a filter. If you reduce the drive, you can just basically Alright, now we're gonna add a sidechain. So I'm gonna use the rack I've took from the On&O YouTube channel. It's basically a shaper with a utility which gonna bring down your volume. So now we can adjust the sidechain. So this I like to keep it subtle, to don't hear it too much, just a little bit. Then obviously you can put it up more in the front at some part of the track obviously. So now we're gonna add a second top layer kick. I'm just gonna duplicate, like this I have everything together. I want more or less exactly the same things, but without the distortion, so I don't want it to be noisy, more like a kind of classic distortion. So I'm gonna remove the amp, and you're gonna see we get a more like kind of a classic percussion. Then everything stay pretty much the same. Maybe I'm gonna change the filter. Yeah, like this. And now maybe we're gonna adjust the volume with the rest. Alright, and this is our solid bass. So it took time, but it's really like the foundation. It should be able to carry on just by itself, like you don't need anything else, because sometimes you will have part in your track where it's just displaying. Alright, so now we can walk into the drums. So I'm gonna add some hats, some close-eye hat, and we're gonna use a drum rack. And I'm gonna load 2 samples of my Process Techno sample pack. I want something pretty sharp. I'm gonna actually put them in classic. And I want something like very clicky, so the same here, no sustain, no release. In terms of pattern, I will do the classic 16 close-eye hat. So we're gonna adjust the velocity to get a bit of groove. So I'm gonna reduce all. You can select all and then have Alt and go down a little bit, around halfway or 40. Yeah. And then the one offbeat, we're gonna bring it up to have this. Now we can add this one as well, stronger. So you get something different. Now we can add a bit of delay. So obviously the delay time will always depend on your MIDI pattern. You might want to experiment here. We're just gonna get rid of the filter and yeah, just see what. What worked the best for you, and then we're gonna add a bit of reverb. So here we're gonna use a hybrid reverb this time because we want to give a bit of color. So then we're gonna go in convolution only, and I'm gonna use the one from the Made for Drums bank, which is called Big Snare. It's getting this, adding this kind of little granular things. Now one thing to make things even more dirty and industrial, it's obviously adding some saturation on top of all of that. So again, you can use amp, you can use overdrive, pedal. We're gonna use overdrive here. I like because with overdrive you can always kind of filter it in the same time that you distort. So that's what we're gonna do here. And then finally, to add more groove, we're gonna add some sidechains. Okay, perfect. So for the open hat, what we can do, we can just duplicate the track because the process effect is the same. We're just gonna get rid of the delay because we don't need, and we're gonna need to load with new samples, obviously, and the new MIDI clip. So here I want a big offbeat noisy open hat. So the best way here is usually to layer as well. So here I've used 3 samples and when they play together. And we want that to be offbeat, so we're just gonna put them the 3 like this. Now here what I've done is I slightly bring the second one a bit offbeat. It either detects something, and then once again we can just adjust the volume. So now let's create the ride, and for the ride we're gonna use the classic 909 core kit. We're gonna use the ride and open hats offbeat, nothing crazy but classic, which always works. Now for the ride we're gonna put it in stereo, and we're gonna use the delay, and we're gonna use the has effect. So for this you just need to put in time, bring everything to 0, and one need to be around 16 milliseconds. We're just gonna bring the feedback, remove the filter, remove the ping pong, put the drive with 100%. I'm gonna solo the ride so you can hear the something like that. Now one thing I like to do is to pitch it as well. So I like to use the frequency shifter in frequency mode because it's gonna pitch but without changing the length too much. So then after it's obviously depend what you want. If you want something negatively, positively. Kind of like this. And then we're gonna use the same process than for the open hat with the hybrid reverb and the sidechain. So now you might wonder why I don't just put kind of this in a return and I send. True, I could do that. Just I usually always do on the track because I have more control over, and can happen sometimes I want a bit less reverb on one or on the other, or process overdrive differently. Maybe reducing the sidechain. And finally adjust the volume according to the rest of the track. Now we're gonna add the snare, so I will go to grab the drum rack and I'm gonna layer 2 snare. So usually here I will go with different type of snares, some more like percussive with maybe a bit of body, some more very noisy. So here I have this one noisy, this one a bit percussive and together, and this is gonna play every 2 beats. Now in terms of effect, I'm gonna take again the same reverb and overdrive. You know, I like to recycle things when one thing's work. Maybe I can make it a bit more nastier. Yeah, something like that. And then just adjust the volume compared to the track. Now I can add another kind of percussion loop by using a 909 clap. So I'm just gonna bring the rack here and I'm gonna put it on the beat. To add groove, you can add some delay. In terms of process, again, I'm gonna just grab same reverb and maybe overdrive down here. Might reduce the drive. And here again, maybe some sidechain. Now, because hats and percussion are very important for this style, I'm gonna show you 2 other tricks. I'm not gonna use on this track, but I think it's worth mentioning. The first perk you can add is kind of using a kind of a tribal percussion and kind of process it a little bit to make it fit into your industrial techno track. So, for example, I have this kind of percussion that you can process and make it fit track. So first thing you can do is pitch it. So we're gonna use Ableton shifter. Again, here you can experiment. I like to use the frequency shifter mode, and then you can pitch it down or up. What you can do is maybe duplicate, try with the ring. Again, just experiment until you find something you like. We're gonna add a bit of saturation just to make things a bit more dirtier. Okay, now let's add some sidechain. And now let's blend it with the rest of the track. Alright, and the second way you find often, I didn't use for this track, but is to having even more like a noisier hats where basically you just have a wall of noise hat in your face. So here I have a noisy open hat, a percussive snare, noisy as well, and this kind of noisy percussion as well, and then together. And in terms of pattern, we're gonna use our groovy crescendo velocity again, so you need to kind of have this 16 pattern, but obviously we're gonna reduce the velocity to have this kind of crescendo. Now, one thing which is pretty common is to use the vocoder with the noise mode. So I even have a preset for that, which is pretty handy, but this is already pretty much known. I'm not gonna use it here. Obviously, you want to add grooves, so we're gonna add a delay. Here again, you can experiment. Okay, that's worked pretty well. You can again add some delay, reverb, distortion, but here was to quickly show you. So don't be shy to layer extra and extra. Okay, so for this track, I wanted something a bit more kind of melodic, hypnotic, and we're gonna create that. So we're gonna go with wavetable. So there is plenty of way, but basically the idea is to take pretty simple sound and again add a lot of distortion and in a big reverb, and it just usually works perfectly. Now there is some few things you need to do with your synth to make it a bit more weird and interesting. Mainly playing with the pitch. You can play with FM. We can play with the modern fall or warp. So for example, here with the modern and the warp, you get this kind of almost sawtooth type of sound. And so we're gonna use oscillator 2. We're gonna use the sawtooth as well. Now the idea is to slightly detune to get this weird effect. Instant weird feeling. Now we can make this a bit more plucky with the amplitude envelope, reduce the attack at 0, break down the sustain. And yeah, decay pretty much the same. We can have some filter modulation, so we're gonna bring down the filter again to open it fast with an envelope like we did with the kick. That's up to you. You go to matrix. I like to do that because it adds transient, it makes it sound a bit more percussive. Now I'll talk about pitch modulation. We can use LFO to modulate the pitch, so I'm just gonna put one semitone. You can leave like this, pretty not bad. I'm gonna use the triangle. You can experiment here obviously, and depending on the rate it will kind of pitch differently. Yeah, like this sounds okay. So like I said, we want to bring this sound into a lot of distortion. So here we're gonna use amp this time. Then again, you can experiment with different modes, different value of gain, middle. Lead is pretty nasty, that's what we want. And you're gonna see when we're gonna add a lot of reverb, it's gonna all make sense. Stereo, and then, and we're gonna use the reverb again, my classic default preset, but we're gonna use a way much longer decay, kind of big warehouse. We're gonna EQ a little bit that. You see there is a lot of low information we don't really need, and we're gonna use this maybe to tame the very high frequency. We can use it as a low pass filter as well for the rest of the track and the progression. Alright, that's cool, but we need it a bit more in the face, so we're gonna use drum bass for that. Watch my video about drum bass, you know I like to use this exactly for that. We're gonna use the compression. Okay, maybe reduce the trim. And then maybe Crunch gonna add extra harmonics in the mid-high, and them's gonna tame this very high noisy frequency that are a bit annoying. Now we're gonna obviously add a bit of sidechain, maybe a bit less than before, especially that our MIDI pattern here is gonna be pretty simple and it's gonna be on the beat. We're gonna go F sharp, D sharp, F, D, which sound like this. And then every 2 repetitions, we're gonna press D sharp again after the D. So it's gonna be like. And so if I write it down in MIDI, it sound like this. And then so it plays like this, and then after I pitch it up 1 octave upper, and now it sounds our full pattern like this. Okay, so that's what we're gonna use our main lead melody, the whole track. Now I wanted to add another extra synth, just to add a bit of variation. It's gonna help for the arrangement. So here I'm not gonna use Ableton VST, I'm gonna use Wave Generator, which is a free VST that you probably own if you're making techno. And inside you can find all the classic chords. This one is the most used lately, everyone is using it. And you can just take the effect from this one, put it in there, create a cool MIDI. And you could create a whole track on that. It's pretty trending right now, but we're gonna do something a bit different. And we're gonna use, we're gonna go to voice and we're gonna choose the party one. And we want something like almost percussive. So you're gonna see how it. And we're gonna use D sharp here. And you're gonna hear it's getting something pretty. And that's gonna be perfect for example, our verse. We're gonna have kind of what we're gonna call the chorus with this part, and then we're gonna take a break from this melody, and we can have this going on with the PERC. And after we're gonna have A plus B, so the chorus and the verse together, so the lead and this one playing together, which works well as well. Okay, now we can maybe mix. Actually, I didn't mix the other one to see how it. Okay, I'm gonna double check all of that with the headphone as well. Okay, so now we got all, obviously we're not gonna play all together in the same time, but yeah, we have our level pretty much. We can always adjust later on. So for the arrangement part, that will be something too long to recreate from scratch. I've kind of set it up here in session mode, so you can just like switch scene by scene. I will let you explore it by yourself. You can play with the scene. Pretty much the rough arrangement. You might want to use the bit repeat. You need to do some low pass filter on the lead, but you get the main structure. I didn't want it to recreate from scratch because it would take long and you don't really learn anything from it. But I'm gonna go over through. I'm gonna just put the headphones. So you're gonna start with just the kick drum. Then you introduce the close hi-hat and the main lead. So you can imagine the main lead, you will kind of slightly open. Maybe sometimes you can do some mute. Can obviously play. have a break. Then no drums, still with the full lead on. Then you can make some cuts, bring back the hop and hat. The drums are different than in the first time. Hop, the snare. And then another break. Maybe reduce. And this will be kind of our break from the main lead, so like kind of the verse. Again, you can do some back. And here again we're gonna reintroduce the main lead. So here I decided to play the snare offbeat, so it adds some percussion. And then our final break. Then you can let it play this, and then it will be the final break. Maybe you can get rid of this. And then you finish the track like this, just with the drums. Slightly getting rid of the drums. Like this. So obviously, like I kind of fast forward like some parts, you know, some parts you can make them last longer to create a full track, but like this you got the idea of the structure, how it should be. And yeah, you can play, I didn't play, but you can play with the beat repeat on the kick. I've done some mute with the push when I was changing the scene as well. But yeah, you can jam with that, especially if you have a push or a launch pad, it's great. But yeah, I hope you like this video. The project is available for free. I will put the link in the description. You can grab it, experiment, modify a little bit. Hope you learn a few tricks. Hope you enjoy. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you soon. Bye bye.